Thank you everyone for being here and for sitting through this conference so far. We've got amazing panelists, people who actually know what technology in the cellular network sort of look like, how it operates, what kind of back-end infrastructure that goes into the whole process. We've got amazing guests lined up. We have with us Asim Ayas, who is the GM policy for Engineering Development Board, Mr. Khurram Rahat, who is the Vice Chairman for Pasha, Wahjoc Arshad, Chief Technology Officer for Rixon, Pakistan, Dr. Usman Zia, who works at the National University of Science Technology and is working within the School of Interdisciplinary Engineering and Science at the university. We finally have with us, Jahanzeb Rahim, who is the Director General Wireless for the Ministry at the Ministry of Information Technology. These amazing panelists actually know what sort of effort that needs to go in terms of bringing the 5G infrastructure, bringing in the networks, the sort of engineering magic that will go into the whole process. But before we sort of begin into the conversation, one of the fact that I don't know whether this is a fact, and perhaps Jahanzeb, you'll be able to sort of guide us better. One of the facts that I was reading at, it is expected that when 5G networks roll out in any city or any country, the expected number of devices that it is supposed to connect is about 1 million in a per square kilometer area. Number one, is that true? Should we expect that? And if so, are we actually ready for such a rollout?
Thank you very much, Puresh. And thank you very much to the organizers for scheduling our panel discussion after the big bosses have left. It's sometimes relatively easier to speak. Yes, you are absolutely right, and Wahjoc will also endorse this. 5G technology was developed. We had, a generation of mobile cellular technologies. We started with the first generation of technologies, which was primarily voice-based and which was primarily using frequency division multiplexing. That's a technical way to describe that. Then we moved on to the 2G, which gave us the SMS, and then the 3G, which opened data connectivity, mobile data connectivity, and then 4G with high-speed mobile broadband connectivity. So in all of these generations, we see that primarily, whenever there was a new technology, new generation of technologies being introduced, predominantly it was highlighted by the increased speed. 5G, on the contrary, has been developed on certain very clear use cases. So one of those use cases is the Internet of Things. So 5G will allow massive IoT devices to connect, and those massive IoT devices, then 5G also offers to connect those devices at a very lower latency. So that's a round trip of packet which goes and comes back. So for applications like autonomous vehicles or remote surgery, we need very lower latency for the applications to work. So that was I able to communicate this at a level where it is understood generally?
I get the sense of what you're saying, and I think many of us, if we just remain a bit quiet at the back so that we can actually hear the guests. Okay, when that happens. But on a note that I really want to understand, when you say low latency, one of the aspects that I was looking at, that using 4G networks, it's around like 60 second or something millisecond. और जब 5G networks की latency की बात करते हैं तो वो कोई around 5 milliseconds के इर्द-गिर्द. It's almost like, I mean, the definition around what is instant, what is real time needs to really be looked at, how we're defining all those things. So the question I'd like to come back to it again, is Pakistan ready for 5G rollout?
Again, it's a very interesting but a very valid question actually. A very relevant debate. Okay, are we ready or not? So again, जब भी 5G की बात होती है तो the point made of whether we are ready for 5G or not is the fact that do you need 500 Mbps of connectivity today on your mobile, Purish? Do you need that? So
I think my phone is more intelligent than I am, but my home isn't yet, nor is my car, so I'm not there yet.
Yeah. So generally people say, who needs 500 Mbps of connectivity, or who needs 1 gigabit per second connectivity? So that means there is no application of 5G, so we hardly need 5G. And the other, for instance, figure or number which is shared is how many 5G devices do we have in Pakistan today? So yes, these are few facts that reflect that probably our readiness is not up to that mark. But let's take a step back. And मेरे उस्ताद कहते थे कि technology evolution is inevitable. और वो जैसे जो Why Nations Fail में भी उसका जिक्र है, जेम्स रॉबिन्सन ने और श्लम पीटर ने भी कॉइन किया था ना, creative destruction. So as technology moves on, the older technologies and the older ways of doing business and things, they get obsolete. So मेरे उस्ताद ये कहते थे, एक बड़ी इंटरेस्टिंग बात है, वो कहते थे कि जो कोर फील्ड्स हैं ना, for instance communication, for instance traveling, for instance construction, civil work, they will never go out of business. ऐसा नहीं होगा कि हमारे पोते आके कहें कि घर बनाने की ज़रूरत नहीं है और गराज वाले बैठे हुए हैं तो why don't we host ourselves on AWS? घर बनाने की क्या ज़रूरत है? ऐसा नहीं होगा, ठीक है? हाँ, घर बनाने के तरीक़े चेंज होंगे, शायद 3D प्रिंटिंग शुरू हो जाए, ये सीमेंट गारा बिजली सब ख़त्म हो जाए. इसी तरह ट्रैवलिंग में इनोवेशन आनी ही आनी है, creative destruction आनी ही आनी है. Today we are traveling on probably rails and airplanes. Tomorrow we might be flying Falcon 9 rockets. So today there are Dubai or Qatar or Asia Pacific is considered as hubs for traveling. Tomorrow there might be space stations for traveling as a hub. तो हाँ, ये कि हो सकता है कि एयरपोर्ट्स रिप्लेस हो जाएं बड़े बड़े राउटर्स के साथ, वो टेलीपोर्टिंग शुरू हो जाए आप समझ रही, और इमिग्रेशन की जगह फायरवॉल्स लग जाएं. तो जो कोर फील्ड्स हैं उनमें तो टेक्नोलॉजी की एवोल्यूशन इनएविटेबल. वी लॉन्च्ड 2G in 2004 and we took another 10 years to launch 4G, 3G, 4G in 2014. So now in 2024, 5G is inevitable in Pakistan. So the question is, are we ready in terms of mobile handsets? Probably not. But were we ready for 4G back in 2014? How many sets were available? 4G handsets were available. Or when 5G was launched in South Korea or US or Germany back in 2019, how many 5G sets were available? So it's a chicken and egg discussion. And we need to discuss how to get ourselves ready for 5G. So some of the initiatives discussed by Minister Saab, like spectrum availability, fiberization, handsets financing, incentivizing our local manufacturing of handsets, these are those initiatives that will ultimately, inshallah, help the sector, the market to get ready for 5G, inshallah.
Excellent segue to Asim Ayaz. So we're almost ready, or perhaps close to being ready. The Engineering Development Board has a role to play. And we would like to understand, to make ourselves ready, we require policy frameworks that will help us with the plan of the implementation. What kind of understanding is EDB putting into developing those frameworks?
Thank you very much. First of all, I'll throw some light to I'll go to 2020. I mean, almost 99% of the mobile phones were being imported. We worked with the association and we gave a policy in 2020, and as one of the speakers said, more than 93% of mobile phones are being made locally. In that policy, we had three aims. One was shifting that manufacturing to Pakistan, number one. Number two was localization of parts and components and the light equipment. And number three was exports. Now, in the 3 years, we faced some problems. There were some LC issues, but the manufacturing has shifted. 80% or so companies, more than 80%, they have also shifted their manufacturing of their packing material. I'll be talking of the manufacturing only because that is my area. Then after some hard times, now, as Minister Saab said, we are preparing the next part of the policy. Earlier, 3% R&D allowance or export subsidy was announced, which couldn't be given, but only 2,37,000 mobiles have been exported from Pakistan. Now, in the new policy, by the way, I was the author of policy, the last policy, which has attracted 33 players. In that policy, there are roles to play. PT has a certain role, IOCO of FPR, the Input-Output Coefficient Organization under FPR is giving the quotas, etc. Policy making falls under Engineering Development Board. We think that these mobiles can be exported. You can say a lot of the previous speakers have already told that now the technology is moving towards Androids from the non-Androids or 2G, 3G mobile phones. But the penetration, as we think, is slow, but that depends upon the user base. I think association and we, more than us, association can tell you better how fast it can be. But our part is giving you the policy, and Minister Saab has already announced that. We had a discussion on 25th January. We'll be submitting the first draft within 2-3 days, which will include 8% R&D allowance, which is the export subsidy, and we expect that the export will enhance, it will be a jump to the exports. Now, we'll try to control the local manufacturing or localization to the extent we can. And that will also be included in the policy. And some allied equipments like SIM-based mobile device, SIM-based laptops, as well as, SIM-based tablets. Manufacturing of laptops will be taken care of at a later stage, some POS machines also. That has been done, and this will be announced. We look forward for some proposals. If there are some from the audience, we are open to that. But the framework will be agreed within 7 to 10 days, and we'll be moving forward. And most of the interventions which Honorable Minister announced will be taken care of in that. I hope I have answered your question.
Dr. Osman, so it seems the logic of owning a smartphone device is something which is incredibly granular in terms of having this discourse around 5G networks. So for instance, there are people who are iOS natives and then there are people who are Android natives. And the role of academia is to create the sort of knowledge stream that would facilitate the companies, that would facilitate the students, but also the regulators and the corporate sector in terms of how this landscape will be shaped. Do you think we have enough use cases as examples to really facilitate that discourse?
Thank you, Paresh, for the question. So, as we have been talking about mobile phones whenever we talk about 5G. Coming from academia, I think that's not the only use case that 5G will be used on mobile phones only. 5G has very broad application domains. If you talk about IoT, mobile phones are nowhere in IoT when you have so many sensors deployed across your farms, across your crops, across your factories. So we have use cases, yes. If you say that whether these use cases can be implemented in Pakistan right now, yes, we can. For example, in the world, we have seen the trend that people are now moving to a private 5G network, localized installation in their own factory. The complete factory is 5G enabled and can work autonomously, while the manufacturers are sitting somewhere remotely and monitoring everything that's happening over there. So broadband, metropolitan applications, metropolitan use cases, as Janzeh Saab already said, that if you want to see a movie of 2 hours, it will take you 2 hours to watch that movie, regardless you download it in 5 seconds. So yes, that's not, use case is not there. But there are use cases that can be done, that can be implemented. And academia, as we have partnered with JAZ to have that lab available to us for the research of the students. And they can showcase those use cases to our decision makers, to our industry. Although industry is much more ahead as if you talk about technology adoption, because they have the visibility globally. But then we can use our own intellect, use our own academic intellect and build those solutions. And I think there are use cases, especially in industry. For example, we have a very large textile market in Faisalabad. So why not to start roll out from there? Why not to 5G enable that whole industrial unit that is there, regardless, it's not in Islamabad or Karachi, but that unit requires that. We have so many farms, so many crops, which have agricultural use cases, and if we lit them with sensors, we can have massive increase in our, revenue, in our growth. So there can be use cases that can be showcased and have a better, outcomes in terms of investment by the operator as well as the users and consumers.
That sounds great, but I'm also wondering whether, Khurram, at Pasha, do you get to consult with the school at NUST in terms of really understanding what the outcomes of those use cases are? Is there any level of cooperation that is happening there with the academia, or which is by far trying to shape the IT industry? You've been part and parcel of this sector for a very long time. So your ideas as to how 5G networks sort of...
Sure. Thank you. So first of all, your question about interacting with universities or academia, I think we as Pasha have been working closely more towards enriching the curriculum and developing the skills. As far as the R&D is concerned, I don't think we have done as much as it should be, but it's a good pointer. Coming to the point about usage of or efficacy of 5G with reference to Pakistan, I think your initial question about 1 million devices being connected has a direct linkage to, as rightly pointed out, 2 areas. One is obviously Internet of Things, and when we talk about IoT, then a lot of its penetration would help in smart homes, smart cities, and that's where you talk about connecting millions of devices in a very small space. In terms of the IT industry, I think the 3-4 things from our perspective, obviously, it does provide our IT industry, 5G would provide enough bandwidth for organizations to actually go and provide IT-enabled services within the country as well as outside of the country, the export business. It does support cloud adoption, because one of the key challenges which a lot of organizations has is that the ability to move gigabytes of data on daily basis, especially with IoT, onto cloud and do fast processing. So when it comes to data and analytics, absolutely it has a very good use case from 5G perspective. Then obviously you talk about telemedicine, or you talk about smart cities, or you talk about remotely performing surgeries. Those all have a very strong impact use case. Then I think one very important thing is, as the country is moving towards fintech adoption, that is again where there is the lower latency will help make sure that the transactions are authenticated quickly, they are done quickly. The key question is obviously, as Kazim pointed out, the use cases are there. The question is that to adapt 5G, what would be the cost? Is the infrastructure there? Is the investment in infrastructure justifies the cost which will be there to pay for 5G? And so in summary, I think in terms of the usages, there are a lot of use cases. It will definitely support smart homes, and especially with this current growing energy crisis. I'm trying to use in my house some sort of smart ways of managing my energy my energy bill, and it will definitely, these kind of things will help. The question again is, when you say, are you ready? No one is ever ready, but that does not mean that you should not adapt the technology, or the technology should not come in. The technology comes in, there are adapters and there are people. The real question is, to what extent are you able to do it based on our experience with 4G, how much coverage we have had. So that's the big question. From my perspective, I think from IT industry perspective, it will open up a lot of positive avenues, for sure.
So it will open up a lot of positive avenues, and do the use cases justify the investment and for the logic for rolling out 5G? In your experience at Ericsson, Wahjoc, what do you find as the most fascinating learning that would make things a little easier for Pakistan for the deployment?
Thanks, Paresh. I think that's not a question for a vendor, it's more communication service providers. I think Kazim and those guys needs to answer if it makes sense from CAPEX point of view. Definitely, I think we all agree at this forum that there are tremendous economic benefits of going towards 5G rollout, but at the same time, it's a huge investment as well. So whether it commercially makes sense, I think the operators needs to assess it. And then, of course, we have a lot of energizing information from the Honorable Minister Saab as well. I think there are a lot of obstacles, of course, in terms of spectrum pricing and infrastructure readiness and all those things, and especially I think the device ecosystem part as well. So I think it's great that we are all sitting together. So it's also good to assess where the rest of the world is at this moment, right? So 5G is now launched in around 265 operators globally. We are now launching 5G since last year in Africa, and it's been there for last 5 years as well. So now we are not discussing about a new technology. It's a very mature legacy technology now. The world is now discussing 6G at the moment. So coming back to your question again, if it makes sense to roll out 5G, I think it's a commercial decision, but it involves a lot of policy intervention as well. So we need to involve all the stakeholders, which include the government, regulator, the operators as well, and because if they want to invest in it, they of course need to reconsider what's the ARPU we are getting in this market, what are the key stakeholders we are going to get. And again, if we look globally, the first core use case of 5G is mobile broadband, which is what we are exactly doing with 4G as well, right? So what else can we do with it? So that's where I think Usman and his team comes into play. We need to explore. Every country have their own local use cases. There are thousands of use cases that are globally deployed now. Ericsson have been a partner with all our customers globally. As I said, we are now rolling out in not only in developed markets, but in African markets as well. And there is a lot of play over there as well. But we need to work together as an industry to find local use cases and see how we can play a role in nation building as well. And then of course, it's a lot of, as I said earlier as well, policy intervention from policymakers as well. What is their digital future for Pakistan? Because then they can make it lucrative for the operators as well to invest in it. For example, I'll just give you an example. If a doctor in Lucky Marwat can remotely observe a doctor, that family doesn't have to travel to the closest, biggest city, right? So it's a lot of savings for them. And similarly, I know a lot of people who just migrate to big cities because they can't do freelancing in their remote village. So it's a lot of investment, both emotionally and of course financially as well. So the government can offload all these investments if they can make it lucrative for operators to invest in it. So it's a lot of interplay, and all the stakeholders need to sit together to make it work.
I've been told that we've only got like 20 minutes for this session. I would like to open it for the next 5-6 minutes if any of you have questions from the esteemed panelists. Do you want a mic? Do you want a mic? There are no mics. I mean, if you have a question, it's fine. I mean, did you guys? I don't think this is for the panelists, but I think there are, within these organizations, there are a lot of training and development opportunities. And I mean, the engineering board has a lot of training opportunities at the same time. And I suppose that so does MOIT, sort of facilitates a lot of that. Pasha is working towards really gearing up the industry in terms of really matching up the speed or pace of development. But if anyone wants to have a dig at that question, please.
I think I'll agree with you. It's never a one-person effort. So, you know, when you're at the top of the organization, generally you are an administrator who has to take decisions, and you surround yourself with the experts. I must admit I led a highly technical organization for good 15-16 years, MBA by profession, but the fact remains that I had a very strong technical team with me, which would advise, which would take those strategic decisions, and you know, I was the one who was kind of the custodian. So I guess that's how any organization is. It's not just one person, it's always a scenario where if you have a lot of strong technical team around you who are taking those decisions, that's how it works.
Excuse me? This side. Okay, so we'll just take one more question and then we'll wrap this up, yeah?
Assalamu alaikum. What steps are needed to to look about local manufacturings?
Every industry has some differential, which is called tariff differential. Duties and taxes must be. There was a cushion of around 20% in the Bangladesh policy. We have also provided the cushion of 20% or so. And you see everybody is now telling that 33 companies have come in. So for manufacturing, you have to give a tariff concession and some ease of doing business, and that is it.
Okay, we're going to do a quick round of question and responses. So literally just refrain yourself to just 15 seconds odd. We'll start with you, John Zaib. If Pakistan launches the 5G technology or the networks, what will Pakistan look like in 10 years from now?
We aspire at least 90% mobile broadband connectivity penetration in the country, and we see tele-accessibility of more than 80%. That is mobile broadband and especially fixed broadband, as discussed by Minister Saab. Fiber is available to at least 80% of the household, which includes businesses, and fiber to the sites. Thanks.
Usman.
So, I don't know whether we'll reach there, but I hope that we have, more inclusivity. Our networks is more accessible. Our agriculture, progresses more, since we are lagging much more in that. Our manufacturing actually grows by leaps and bounds. I think the most areas to focus for next 10 years should be manufacturing. And we should be manufacturing focused, and using these technologies, we should, start building our manufacturing units enabled and capable of doing that, and also enable our students, our academia, to be able to contribute in that. So I know I'm taking a lot of time, but just to final comment that when I was doing my graduation, the 3G was being rolled out in Europe, and we never heard word 3G in my whole degree. So students over now in our universities are not working on 5G while it's being rolled out across the globe. So at least they should be given that opportunity to work on that, so that they become a contributing factor in their economy of the country as well as globally.
Yeah, so I think the next 10 years is going to be very exciting in Pakistan. I think we don't have to look far, just look to the right. And far right is India and Bangladesh. They have a successful auction. We were launching a new base station every 6 minutes in India, if I talk about Ericsson. And I think we have very low-hanging fruits. MBB is going to be the main use case, then followed by fixed wireless access, utilities. It's a long road, but I think if you all work together, in next 10 years, we would have a very bright future.
Difficult to predict after 2 years even, but for sure, if we are the way we are moving towards usage of technology, I would say we should be more efficient in terms of usage of our resources. Efficiency and smartness comes in, so we talk about that. So smart use of technology, smart use of resources, which is badly needed for the country. So from an economic growth perspective, and I believe most important thing is a lot of boost to our potential exports, especially in the field of IT and telecom.
In manufacturing, one good thing is that we have almost all the top brands except Apple over here. I think let us leave the innovation to them. They are quite capable industries, and I hope that if the technology proliferates, they'll be catching up.
Thank you so much, and I think I've learned so much about 5G in the last 72 hours that I hadn't ever before. The only thing I used to hear about 5G was ye kal aane wala hai, ye parson aane wala hai, 2 mahine baad aane wala hai. But thanks to you all, there is some glimmer of hope in terms of how this will shape the landscape of Pakistan when it comes to cellular networks. Thank you everyone, and a big round of applause for the panelists, please.